Hi, I'm Tyson.
And I'm Mike. And we argue with dragons.
Welcome back, listeners. This is Arguing with Dragons. I'm your host, Tyson.
And I'm Mike.
Mike, good to talk to you again. Did you have a good week, Mike?
Indeed. I sure did.
Good. So did I. I've been on vacation, listeners, for this week, and my vacation is roughly halfway over, and it's been real nice. Just sitting back, talking about nerd shit with my friend.
Well, look at fucking you, dude. Over here having all the time in the world to be a nerd.
Oh, I wish. Actually, this week we brought home a puppy, and I can safely say, listeners, that babies are easier than puppies.
So I don't see what all the confusion and commotion is about. Think of the children. Think of the puppies.
Think of the puppies. You know, a baby will crap in its diaper, but a puppy can just crap anywhere.
Including on expensive things, like that
Yes.
Afghan that your mom made for you when you were 2.
That was oddly specific, Mike.
Well, I have oddly specific memories.
Hey, so I've gotten some feedback here from a few listeners that I'd just like to share with the aether here. One listener said, it was good. And I was like, hey, that's great. Thank you.
What'd the other 2 say?
Do you really want to know?
Not especially.
Okay. I'll just chalk those up to constructive criticism. But you know what, listeners? We want to hear from you. arguingwithdragons@gmail.com. If you want to write in and tell us exactly what you think of our podcast, what you think of me as a host, what you think of Mike as a co-host. I don't care if good, bad, ugly. I don't care. I just like to see something show up in my inbox.
That's not a spam email asking you to buy a timeshare in Florida.
Oh, you know, I'd buy a timeshare in Florida.
I wouldn't.
I would. I'd like to go visit Florida again. It's a pretty state.
Too many alligators, mosquitoes, and Republicans.
Very, very true. All right. So, Mike.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart today.
Are we?
We're going to talk about Star Wars today, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I am excited because Star Wars is one of my favorite things. My oldest memories of being a nerd go all the way back to sitting in front of the TV and watching reruns of Star Wars, going and seeing the re-releases in theaters, going and lining up with everybody else to see the prequel trilogies. I can't get enough of the galaxy far, far away.
Fun fact for our listeners, just a little insight into our respective friendship here. I actually met Tyson on the job at a Kohl's department store. He was the head of security. I was a new cashier. I walked into his office on my first day because I had to be in there for some kind of training. I can't remember exactly what, but he had a replica lightsaber on his wall. I commented on it, said it was kind of cool, and he let me in on the fact that he had a bunch of battle-ready lightsabers. And from that point on, we were best friends.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that I'm not a huge Star Wars fan like he is.
That's true.
I simply recognized that it was, in fact, a lightsaber.
He did, and that was enough, ladies and gentlemen. I told him that that was for making sure that none of the criminals got very far. And if I struck them down, they would become more powerful than I could possibly imagine.
Part 2 of that insight, we had multiple actual fights with those lightsabers, and holy shit, do they hurt.
Yes. So
bulletproof glass is what it was.
Bulletproof plastic. Yes. Polycarbonate, 1-inch diameter blades. They were constructed off a website. I can't remember the name now. Maybe it was like custom.
I think it was Custom Sabers.
CustomSabers.com. You bought the parts individually and they were screwed together basically. And inside were several watt LEDs, and you had to wire them up to battery packs and resistors and all that fun stuff. And I was a novice with it. I didn't know much about electronics and all that, but I knew enough to make them and make several of them, some for my kids, some for my friends. And yeah, we'd take them out to the parks and dusk and choreograph fights. And, you know, we'd get people that would stop and watch. And I thought it was really cool.
Found the website. Used to be known as Custom Sabers, now known as swasabers.com.
Yeah, Custom Saber Shop. That's what it was.
Yep.
That was good times, good times. But,
And by golly, were they ever over $600?
oh, no, not to be no, I think they cost around 180 a piece to build back then, depending on how detailed you made them.
The cheapest one I'm seeing on here now is 400.
Well, I bought them by the part, not by the built. So I bought individual parts that you could put together yourself.
Gotcha. Well, these are all pre-builds, and they are ranging from $397 for your basic, including the Darksaber, as well as all of the notable character sabers, as well as Darth Maul's The Phantom
Nice.
for $987.
Yeah, being a nerd can be expensive, ladies and gentlemen, but this is what happens when adults get adult money.
That it is. And when adults are nerds, money is guaranteed to flow.
Sometimes.
And some movie directors took complete advantage of that, didn't they?
They did. I missed the boat. I should have done that for a living.
Uh-huh.
So we'll talk about the franchise a little bit, Mike. This all started in, in the 70s with the original trilogy. It started with episode 4. And as a kid, I didn't quite understand why that was. Like, why would you start a story in the middle? Why do you think they did that?
Because in the 70s, mushrooms were very popular.
I'm not sure that there's fact to it, but I've heard that George Lucas had written 1, 2, and 3, but felt too limited by the times. So he started the story with 4, and I don't buy that story at all. I don't think that's true. I think
To me, that sounds plausible, but at the very same time, a complete cop-out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about starting a story where we're gonna have the Death Star blow a planet up, and you're worried about the special effects budget. I mean, come on. So the cool thing about Star Wars was though is they custom did their special effects. Whole studios, Industrial Light and Sound, all formed because of Star Wars. Like these were cutting edge at the time, building those models, doing the camera tricks that they came up with to make this movie happen. That's incredible. It was an incredible thing.
There wasn't a hell of a lot of CGI either, and it was extremely limited with what they did have. Most of it was practical effects.
There were no CGI in the original trilogy. It
Rotoscoping.
was 100%. That's not CGI because there were no computers in the 70s to do it.
Oh, really?
Really.
I learned something today.
So we're talking peak practical effect. Then we've got the sequel or the prequels that came out. And those came out, I was still in high school when Phantom Menace came out. And
Yeah. I was like 8.
yeah, these
Wait,
movies.
when was the first one? When was Phantom Menace?
I don't know.
You claim to be a super nerd.
The Phantom Menace dropped May 19th, 1999.
Aha, I was 10.
10
Or
years
just
old.
coming up on 10.
He hadn't even hit puberty yet, ladies and gentlemen.
Weird to talk about.
So those 3 movies came out and they showed exactly what CGI could do for the Star Wars universe.
Absolutely.
And while I feel that that was a wonderful thing, we're going to talk a little bit later about why I feel like that was also the worst thing about those movies. And then before the prequel trilogy came out, we had a whole slew of books and comic books and video games that continued the story. And they built a universe, an entire galaxy worth of stories, worth of beauty, worth of just some of the coolest shit you've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And
huge diversity of alien races and creatures and species and stuff.
What's your favorite weird thing about the Star Wars galaxy?
A weird thing as in weird object?
Like anything. Weird object, weird species, weird fact, weird anything. Like in the story, in the lore.
Oh, well, I'm not near as versed in the lore as
fine.
you are, but
what you do know.
What I do know, well, can't think of anything really. Yeah. Instead of sitting here listening to me make pondering noises, how about you start?
Well, I have a lot of things that I absolutely love. My favorite piece of Star Wars anything was written by a man named Timothy Zahn, and it is The Heir to the Empire. It was the second, not the first book to be released after the original trilogy finished. The first book was called Splinter in the Mind's Eye, and it was released between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And the fun fact about that book is when it was written, nobody knew that Luke and Leia were brother and sister. And everybody
Clearly not
assumed,
even George Lucas.
oh, George Lucas did. He did not write Splinter in the Mind's Eye. And he was not consulted properly because when that book was released, in that book, Luke and Leia are together instead of being not together. And Darth Vader gets confronted, and it's a strange book. But of course, it's retconned by Empire Strikes Back, but it was definitely a neat piece of lore. But Heir to the Empire is just a fantastic story about what happens after the original trilogy. The Empire's in shambles and is being regrouped around a Grand Admiral. And that Grand Admiral, probably the best literary villain I have ever read, by far. And not because, he's some powerful force user who could shoot lightning out his dick, but he is a master mind. He's a genius. And he's so observant and smart that he can study the culture and art of his opponents and use that to his advantage to get into their brains, get into their psyche, and understand what they're going to do so he can anticipate their movements. And while that seems kind of weird, it creates a villain that is about 6 steps ahead of you all the time. And when you have a villain like that, people tend to underestimate and overestimate. Well, he can't be that smart, so they go and do something stupid. Or he's so smart, they second guess everything they do, and they miss the easiness, the easy in, easy out. And it's written very well. He captures each character from the original trilogy so well. And he adds a few new ones in that they're just lovable and likable. And I hope that they don't die out in the extended universe now that the great House of Mouse owns Star Wars,
We
which
dare
is
not
another
speak
thing
out
we can
against
talk about.
them.
I know they're listening to the podcast right now. The lawyers are standing by. They're hovering their finger over the button that says, "Sue these bastards." Oh, anyway, old Mickey
Well,
Mouse.
I'm gonna be honest with you, you're limiting your worldview by calling Grand Admiral Thrawn the absolute best villain of all time when you haven't read Blood Meridian.
I said greatest literary villain, not the absolute best villain of all time.
Greatest literary villain would, I have to say, be Judge Holden from Blood Meridian.
Blood Meridian. Huh?
Yes, it's an anti-Western novel, if you will. Takes a lot of liberties in Western storytelling. Judge Holden is positively the most diabolical villain to have ever existed, in my opinion, in any form of fiction. Just the scariest motherfucker you can imagine without having any kind of magical power or anything. Just a straight up villain of the human. Completely chaotic. Imagine the ideologies of the Dark Knight Joker, but in the Old West, and he is more than willing to do all of the evil to all of the people just because he can.
You see, that's where you lose me as being a great villain. Being a great villain is not always about being the most evil you can be or the most chaotic you can be. Being a great villain usually revolves around being able to understand that villain's motives. So here's a good example. We all love Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yes.
And I love that character. Great. But the reason why it's a great villain is because of how he acted and portrayed it in that show. But if you knew nothing about Batman and you watch that show, can you relate to that villain?
On a personal level, maybe. As for his motivations, maybe not.
So being able to relate to the motivations of a villain makes a villain even greater. Being able to understand that that villain does not see themselves as a bad guy is even greater. And to be able to look at a villain and be able to say, well, if I were in his shoes, I'd do the same thing. That's what makes a villain great. And while Grand Admiral Thrawn in the original Heir to the Empire series is definitely a villain, his motivations are not pure evil. He's honorable. He's a warrior. He's not a fighter. He's not a soldier. He is a warrior, and he knows it. And later, much later, they've definitely evolved his character even more in other books that they've written about him that actually lets you in a little bit more to how he thinks and why. But, this isn't a podcast episode about Thrawn and why the Chiss are probably my absolute favorite thing about Star Wars. But this is about Star Wars in general.
Yes,
So
it is.
I digress. So what do you think about the prequel movies that came out after Disney?
Hot take on that. The prequel series was good.
That's not something you hear every day on the internet.
No, it is not. While it is not perfect, the prequel trilogy is good. Not great, good.
So I won't lie, I absolutely hated The Force Awakens. I was so disappointed. And
I don't know.
I think
I had high hopes going in. Really did. My hopes were not, my expectations were not met, but they were not destroyed either.
my greatest memory of watching The Force Awakens was being in the movie theater watching it. And when Kylo Ren took his mask off and I saw Adam Driver's face for the first time, the guy sitting next to me physically laughed out loud. And I had to bite my own lip to not laugh too.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, here you are, this really interesting, put together evil character making his first appearance, and then he takes his mask off, and it's Adam fucking Driver. And if you've seen his face, he is kind of a oddly beautiful man.
I
And
wouldn't go that far.
oh, he is. He really is
He's
an
a
oddly
decent looking
beautiful
guy.
man.
I will give you that. But
I didn't say decent looking, and I didn't say attractive. He's just oddly beautiful. And when you look at that face, it just does not match the character he's portraying at all.
well, I mean, when you take off a frankly cool looking mask and you reveal an Easter Island head, yeah, it's a little tough.
Well, he's following the footsteps of Darth Vader, where Darth took off his mask, and there's Anakin's old withered face with scars and pale skin. And
Yeah.
it's like you can feel it in your heart in that scene when it happens. And then this guy takes off his mask, and he's a pretty boy with a big nose that doesn't even look anything like Harrison Ford or Carrie Fisher, and it's supposed to be their kid. I don't know.
Well, to build off of your experience in the theater, I think I was at the same premiere with you, wasn't I?
I don't think so.
Could have sworn I had gone to the midnight release, but I don't remember. But either way, I had a similar thought run through my head. I didn't chuckle or anything. It was like, you hear Ray say, take off that mask. And then when he does, just first thought in my head was like, okay, put it back on now.
That's exactly. Okay, put it back on, dude, please. You're not scary anymore. And now I just want to laugh at you and I can't take your lines seriously.
Yeah. Although, just to interject here, that opening scene in The Force Awakens when he stops the blaster bolt mid-air and it just stays there,
That was
that
cool.
was awesome.
That's something that, I thought to myself, how come you never seen that in more Star Wars lore?
Or just to kind of tack on, how come you never see that as a subject here? Why don't you ever see Jedi and Sith fighting with lightsabers using the Force itself to control the lightsabers and not being close enough to get hit?
Actually, you do.
And then, Before you nerd out, I'm talking movies.
Oh, in the movies? Yeah.
Why
Because
was that never explored?
I think it was more because they wanted the fights to seem impactful, like good versus evil, and there wanted to be consequences. You know, you can take any piece of science fiction or fantasy literature and you can say, okay, well, if you have this infinite power and all these neat abilities, how come you didn't use it this way or this way or this way to make it easier? Well, because that doesn't make a good story. That doesn't
That's the
make
Eagles taking Frodo to Mordor kind of argument going out right
exactly.
there. I mean,
The Eagles could have
there's a reason
easily,
for it.
yeah, they could have easily picked him up and carried him off to Mordor, and
But the
he,
Eagles are not beholden to anyone.
yeah, fly, you fools. Where you think he was talking about running? Hell no. He's like, call the fucking Eagles, you idiots.
Fly is an old English term for flee.
It sure was. I know. I'm just being facetious.
I know you
But
are, but still. Yeah, I get the point. But okay, now unfetter yourself from the holding back of your nerdliness and explain what Force user used the Force to fight with lightsabers.
Darth Treya. Darth Treya was portrayed in the video game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, and she used lightsabers with her brain. Instead of giving up combat, she used the Force to levitate and control 3 lightsabers independently in battle.
Pretty damn formidable, if I do say so myself.
It definitely, yeah. So that's the thing about Star Wars. There's just so much out there. So many video games, so many comic books, so many books.
And that's not
And
even to mention the Lego Star Wars stuff.
oh, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Now, we were talking about the sequel trilogy. Um, I'll agree with you, but I'll agree with you on The Last Jedi. I think The Last Jedi was the best of the 3 movies.
Which is not
And
to say it was good.
I think it was good. And I think it was good on its own merits because here's the difference. The Force Awakens was practically a shot for shot remake of A New Hope.
Yes, it
Just with
was.
different characters, different planet names, and a bigger Death Star. And
And
it
a hell
was,
of a lot bigger budget.
yeah, I mean, it was just like, it was very unoriginal. And they missed a golden opportunity for Finn to be a Jedi or to have the Force and to give it to Rey, which was cool. I liked Rey's character. I think she was good.
Eh,
But like they should have just done a little bit more with that rather
as an
than just
action girl, she was great. But as a protagonist of a whole series,
she was very puzzled about why she had the gifts she had, and she didn't know who her parents were. And I think they handled that very well. And, I predicted it long before it was ever released that she would end up being a Palpatine.
I thought for sure she was going to be a Kenobi.
I thought that would have been really cool. I was crossing my fingers for that, but I'm like, they're going to make her a Palpatine. And I just knew. I just like, that's just going to be what happens. And then she's going to
We'll
have
talk a
to,
little more about Palpatine later, by the way.
oh yeah. He is literally one of the worst villains, at least with what you're shown on the big screen. So, and then Rise of Skywalker came out and I was,
Barf.
yeah, I was very disappointed. And not because, I'm going to be a nerd here for a moment, but tell me why a Sith dagger from ancient times would just magically line up with the remains of a Death Star that was blown up only, what, 30 years prior to when this chick's holding it up on the cliffside? Did he just see the future and see this thing and then to know exactly where in that Death Star this dagger was going to show you where this Sith Wayfinder was going to be? I mean, that was just so unnecessary and full of just shit. And it was like, how can we come up with some space bullshit to make the fans happy? And it wasn't even good because
It made the fans unhappy.
the fans didn't want to,
Task failed successfully.
nobody wanted to see Palpatine be the main villain of this again. Everybody was begging to know who Snoke was and
Yeah,
where
and
he went.
that's one of the huge flaws that I want to bring up about the sequel trilogy. Fucking, they introduced Palpatine in the original series as this dark, shadowy villain, just manipulating everyone from behind the scenes. You had no idea who he was outside of being Darth Sidious. And then the prequel trilogy, I mean, when they brought in Senator Palpatine, you're like, "Hey, it's that guy that was under the hood in the original series." They made no attempt to hide that, which
No,
kudos to them for that.
they weren't. It was actually mentioned that his name was Palpatine.
Sheev
Not
Palpatine.
not in the original trilogy, but in, like, extended things after the trilogy.
Yeah.
They referred to him as Senator or Chancellor Palpatine.
Exactly. But my point on the sequel trilogy, he was reintroduced to the series off screen. What kind of bullshit is that?
Well, they were you probably wouldn't know this since you're not as big of a Star Wars nerd as me, but they were attempting to recreate the Dark Empire series
Sure, but
in
that
this.
appealed to the people that were into the extended universe as opposed to the people that just knew the movies.
Well,
Huge misstep.
they appealed to it wrong because that's not how it happened in the Dark Empire comic book series.
I do believe you explained to me previously that that basically when Palpatine was thrown into the trash compactor by Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi,
Power reactor,
that
but okay.
Pa
Trash
there's a lot of
compactor.
giant holes in the ships that people are
I'm
thrown into in the
I'm
series, so
literally
yeah,
okay, right now I'm picturing a Robot Chicken skit where Palpatine falls into a trash compactor and he's bitching about there being dirt on his clothes and robes as the walls start to collapse on him.
it does sound
Uh,
very Robot Chicken-y,
uh,
but, yeah, no, my point was I seem to remember you telling me about this in that he was so powerful with the Force that when he died, his soul basically became a giant storm in space.
it did. His consciousness was like a force storm, and he was ready for his own death. He had prepared for it, and on a planet in this very dead center of the deep core in the middle of the Star Wars galaxy called Biss, he, had created a whole laboratory full of clones for himself, and the problem was, though, that every time his consciousness entered one of these clones' bodies, it would prematurely age it, and it wouldn't last very long because he had so much power that he would rot away the body that he had. And they allude to the fact that Palpatine himself may have been switching in and out of bodies for a long time at this point, just wearing them out and then going and getting a new one and wearing it out. So the point of the story was he was trying to lure Leia, who was pregnant with her third child by this time, to the planet so that his consciousness could enter Leia's unborn baby. And Luke goes to the Emperor under the guise of pretending to fall to the dark side so that he can gain his trust and gain access to the codes controlling these devices called planetary devastators. They were basically indestructible, huge machines that would run over the surface of planets, tearing up the ground, turning the crust of the planet into raw materials, and then the machines actually would build fully automated TIE fighters that flew autonomously out the tops. And I mean, they were like huge troop factories, and they didn't need people, and they were ravaging worlds. You actually fly a mission in the original Rogue Squadron game. It's a bonus mission at the very end to destroy the planetary devastator. And it was wild because at the time, here I am, this little shit playing on my N64, and I find this hidden level at the end, and I'm like, "What the hell is a planetary devastator?" And not till later in life do I figure it out. So, fun fact. Oh,
But still, they hugely mishandled that. Like, the very first words in the opening crawl of the, final movie was, "Palpatine returns."
yeah,
What kind of shit is that? No lead up, no nothing.
a mysterious signal was broadcasted across the galaxy or something like some shit like that.
Yeah, and, the previous film, the fucking The Last Jedi ended with Snoke dying.
He did. He got
I
chopped in
wanted to
half.
know who the fuck Snoke was.
Well, they explain it in the third movie that he was just a clone body that had served as a temporary inhabitants for the will of Palpatine to control. It was
Feels like
just
lazy writing.
I think it was, and I don't think that was the intention to be Snoke in the first movie. I think he was gonna be an independent character, but they weren't told where it was gonna go.
Yeah.
Old J.J. Abrams did the best he could with what he had.
No, he did not.
No, you're right, he didn't. He was a fanboy, and he just wanted to cater to the fanboys out there. But,
Mhm.
that segues us, ladies and gentlemen, into a really good point. I love Star Wars, but it is not infallible, and it deserves every bit of the criticism we're about to give it.
Yeah,
Are you ready for this, Mike?
bring it.
The original trilogy is seen as, the pinnacle of science fiction cinema. And while it did wonderful things, it is mythic. It's got everything. But philosophically, is it deep?
Kinda, sorta.
No, not even a little. It is cookie cutter, good versus evil. They don't even do a very good job explaining why the Empire is evil, aside from, oh, they gunned down my aunt and uncle, and I see their charred skeleton. They must be bad guys. Oh, I hate the Empire.
Except, they destroyed an entire planet.
Well, one man destroyed the planet, and you see that, but you don't really see why the entire galaxy hates these people. Like, it is very
Well, sure, no, they're not showing the alligator Alcatraz in space or anything, but at the same time, I mean, it's abundantly clear that they're evil people. But I
it
will agree, they don't really go a lot of distance in explaining why.
something that I've noticed greatly about Star Wars, and it travels through the prequels and the sequels, that the movie is just shown to you in these little blips, these
Yeah.
little scene blips where you get a little window into what's going on, and then sometimes it fast forwards to a completely different time frame of what's going on somewhere else. And it's very compact. So they try to shove a lot into these little scenes.
That they do,
And
actually, yeah, now that you mention it, and
And if you just take
yeah.
Star Wars, especially the original trilogy, at face value, and you never pick up a book, you never go watch the Clone Wars, you never go watch anything else, you will get almost nothing depth-wise, and you will get such little world building that you will have more questions than you got answers from that movie. Because
I'll give
George
you
Lucas
that.
himself is not what made Star Wars the deep, wonderful thing that it became. The extended universe did that.
Hot take, George Lucas is not a great writer.
No, have you ever read his book?
No.
Oh, he describes the laser fire as rainbow lights flashing through the space or something like that. And I remember reading it in the 6th grade and thinking to myself, it's way cooler to watch it on TV.
Yeah, exactly,
But
show don't tell, buddy.
I feel like I had a pretty good imagination back then. So, Luke has a really clean story arc, and Vader's redemption is really powerful. And maybe it's a good thing that they really don't explain the Force. They don't define it. And there's
Yeah,
no real political aspects to it. Like, they don't describe the politics of what's going on. You just know that there's an empire and there's a rebellion, but you don't really know. And you hear a little bit about the Senate being dissolved, but you don't really know who the hell they are.
but
And
then both of those points are turned on their ass with the prequel trilogy.
well, they're not necessarily turned on their ass, but like you actually get an explanation now for what the hell they were talking about in those first movies. But you just get the Empire's evil because uniforms and they blew up a planet.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
and
blowing up a whole planet kinda solidifies that you're an evil organization regardless of your motives.
this is very true. I was always fascinated by the Empire, though. Like,
I
I wanted
mean,
to know
I
their
know.
military structure. I wanted to know why they were the way they were. I wanted to know who designed their ships. And I loved the Imperial ships. I think they were just so cool. Maybe it's just the structure and order that I wish I had in my own brain that makes me love the Empire because I'm definitely not a fascist. And they are definitely fascists, ladies and gentlemen,
Mhm.
modeled completely after Hitler and his armies.
Don't talk about the funny mustache man on YouTube, we'll get banned.
Oh, I will not talk about the funny mustache man. So the prequels had some great ideas. Ewan McGregor made me love Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Well,
I
Ewan
just
McGregor's a very lovable person
Oh,
where
I
I
just
just wanna
love his
snuggle him.
character. He's just a wonderful actor, and they could
Yeah,
not have picked a better character to portray Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Absolutely.
But, the fall of democracy, excellent, excellent. I mean, we should be watching this right now in our world today. The Jedi, arrogant bureaucrats, wonderful. Palpatine engineering a war to gain the power. I mean, this all makes sense and it all came together.
And it's all happening right now.
Anakin psychologically falling apart and suffering from grief and, having, the issues growing up with this immense power and knowing that you're a chosen one and trying to live with that weight. I mean, that was a good concept. Only George Lucas can't write dialogue for shit.
I hate sand. It's coarse, irritating, gets everywhere. Fuck all of that.
You know what is more coarse than sand?
That writing.
The romance between Anakin and Padme.
Yeah, they have all the chemistry of a couple of chairs stacked on each other.
I mean, Natalie Portman is a beautiful, brilliant actress. And
Straight up, absolutely.
Hayden Christensen is a good actor, and he's a
Hell
handsome
of a
guy.
good actor. He was in a couple of movies after Star Wars, and I was just blown away by the absolute complete separation from his very woody acting in Star Wars to what he actually could do.
You're absolutely right. And he had to have been given the script and been like, this is it.
This is my big breakout role. Come on.
And, and the fact that they used so much CGI. I mean, things that were practical effects in the original trilogy, they just CGI'd them in this because
That
they
they
could.
did.
It was probably cheaper. But
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, make a sock puppet versus CGI a sock puppet seems like a pretty big cost disparity.
inflation, it sucks. But honestly,
Socks don't cost that much.
the reason why you don't see more practical effects in movies is because CGI is cheaper. Absolutely cheaper.
Fair enough.
But none of the emotion, the emotion that's in that movie, it just doesn't hit between a lot of these actors. And it's not because they're bad actors, it's because they were given bad lines, it was
Bad lines,
just,
bad scripts all around. Absolutely. And that's not just the prequel trilogy. That's all of it.
I felt Revenge of the Sith was, it was such an ambitious movie.
It was.
And
It was
it-
very ambitious.
I feel like it got rushed way too much though.
Despite the rushedness of it, which I do agree with to a point, it was long as shit for the time.
Well, I just don't understand how Anakin might be troubled and he might be going through some emotional problems after losing his mom and then having these dreams about losing Padme and all that stuff. But how do you go from I'm an angsty teenager who's worried I'm going to lose my hidden wife to child murderer in literally an afternoon?
Well,
That just didn't track with me. His fall was too quick, too fast, and too much right off the bat.
well, that's the God of the gaps argument, man. I mean, you say he fell off so quickly and so easily, but no, he was being talked onto that ledge by Palpatine the whole time.
You have to assume he was because you don't see that in the movie.
You do, though.
You only see these little snippets of Palpatine just planting seeds.
And those
But
seeds grow. You don't see the seeds grow, sure, but it's implied.
I can understand the seeds growing, but, why would you just go to killing the younglings literally
I have an answer to that.
just like that?
I have a perfect answer as to why he didn't. George Lucas's writing.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It all comes back to that.
One thing I really despise about George Lucas is that he has got this preconceived notion that women in science fiction need to dress like sluts. And that bothers me.
I mean, to all the horny teenagers out there, you're welcome. But at the same time,
Ahsoka Tano should not have been wearing what she wore in the first Clone Wars. I mean, this is a cartoon we're talking about. And she's
Fair.
still literally dressed in next to nothing at 15 years old in the show.
yeah, let's not do that.
I mean, it's stupid. George Lucas has just got a bad idea of how women should dress. And, God bless his heart, I loved seeing Princess Leia in that slave girl outfit.
We all did.
Every man did. But
Carrie Fisher had a body.
Carrie Fisher had it going on. But, like, he took it a little too far.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why he absolutely hated the character of Mara Jade from Heir to the Empire is because she didn't fit into his archetype of a female in the Star Wars universe. She was a strong-willed woman who wore all of her clothes. And that didn't track with Lucas. Like, that's just not how he wanted to do it. And I get why. He was modeling his characters after, the old science fiction stuff.
The Wizard of Gore, for instance.
No, I'm trying to think of the name of the show that I can see it. They joke about it in that movie Ted. You know what I'm
Flash
talking about?
Gordon?
Yeah, Flash Gordon. There you go. I couldn't think of the name. Masters of the Universe or something like
The
that.
savior of the universe. He'll save every one of us, yeah. I
So
watched a couple episodes of Flash Gordon, and it is fucking silly.
exactly. But like that was his inspiration for writing Star Wars. I don't know if you knew that or not, but those are the
I
things
didn't.
he gathered a lot of his inspiration from was the Wild West and Flash Gordon. And what could you do if you mix those two together? Well, you get Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now the Jedi, I love the Jedi first off, I'll say that.
Sure.
But are they really heroes?
No.
No, you're absolutely right. They're not. And
They're not even good people.
I don't know if they're not good people.
They are zealots to the nth degree. They are just complete zealots. They believe that their ideology should be printed on every single person in the galaxy or else.
So that's absolutely not what the Jedi Order stood for.
That's how they practiced.
It's not actually at all how they even practiced. So they did they did some questionable things. So the Jedi took children, for one, like babies that were force sensitive. They were taken from their parents, sometimes against their parents' will, in isolated incidents to be raised as Jedi so that their powers could be harnessed for good. They had a mental philosophy of forbidding attachment. And so that wasn't to forbid love. It wasn't to forbid physical love. Like Jedi could go out and have, they couldn't have babies, but they could go out and have a time if they wanted to go out and have a good time. They just couldn't be attached to anything or anybody. Because
So that's the
attachment,
entire reason that Anakin had his problems, emotional frustration. He wanted to love.
he did. And he was already attached to his mother, and that was the problem.
And love makes you kill babies
They,
in the Jedi Temple.
the Jedi believed in democracy, but even when democracy was rotting to the core, they still stood by it. And sometimes they ignored slavery, I mean, they didn't free Anakin's mom. They weren't there to free the slaves. Did they want to do it? Yeah, but they believed in balance. And no, Jedi were not ever meant to force their beliefs on anybody else. They never tried to do that even. They were strictly arbiters of knowledge, balance, and justice. They were meant to be kind of like the police force of the galaxy. Only, yeah, some of them did go too far.
Fuck the police, though.
I mean, the Jedi Code is all about balance and knowledge and, they were never meant to be leaders. They're not equipped to be leaders. Obi-Wan says that in a book. We're not equipped to be leaders. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we touched on it a little bit earlier, but the sequel trilogy, I don't think they had a plan at all.
Well, there's a little more to it than that, I think. I think there was definitely a storyboard. There was definitely an idea.
How can we make the Death Star bigger? Oh, let's make it the size of a whole planet instead of just a moon. And then let's make it have this bullshit hypersonic or hyperspace weapon that can destroy a whole solar system instead of just one planet.
Yeah. While I'll admit the flashy visuals were cool, the entire idea just seemed way overkill.
It was pretty uninspiring, if you ask me. Like, I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, like I said,
And then
flashy visuals were impressive and cool.
And then to dig in and find out that the Starkiller base was actually the planet Ilum, and that had been hollowed out because it was full of kyber crystals, and they turned it into, a killing machine when it used to be a place where Jedi went to find their lightsaber crystals. I mean, that's cool.
I
That was
mean,
a
see
really
that
cool
I didn't
story.
know.
But you don't get any of that in The Force Awakens. You have to go read books and you have to go, watch videos and find out the hard way that that's where they were going with that.
See, I wish I could read.
That'd be nice. I know. I could give you a
Yeah.
script and you could follow a script in these instead of just bullshitting with me for an hour.
Well, that's what this is all about, ain't it?
For sure, for sure. I don't know, it didn't have a cohesive trilogy arc. It wasn't like the old trilogy or even the prequel trilogy. It just kept trying to throw curveballs at you to see, oh, they guessed this right. Oh, they didn't guess this right. And again, like we said earlier, somehow Palpatine returns. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like, are we writing memes here or are we writing Star Wars?
Exactly. Well, here's my consideration as to what J.J. Abrams' thought process was on the entire sequel trilogy.
He didn't do
Introduce
the whole,
girl
he did
character.
not do the entire sequel trilogy.
Well, you see my point, though.
Okay.
Or see my meaning here. Introduce hot female character played by Daisy Ridley, who, by the way, gorgeous, and have her talk to some funny dick-nosed alien who gives her a piece of bread in exchange for some spaceship parts. Cool. Now-
1/4 portion.
Precisely, but have him played by Alan Tudyk, so it's funny. Anyway, or no, not Alan Tudyk. Shit, what was the guy's name? Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg. Who is just the British Alan Tudyk, basically.
You're terrible. 1/4 portion.
Anyway, start there and end with big bad guy dying. And let's throw a bunch of bullshit in the middle to make it all work.
Yeah. I mean,
And we got to include green milk from alien titties.
yeah, that was a scene I just didn't understand why it needed to be there.
It didn't.
I mean, just like Rose's character,
Then
it did not really need to be there. I mean, okay, so internet, before you flame me, the actress, great.
absolutely.
She's wonderful. She's cute and she was quirky and she played the character she was given with all the gusto. The problem is the character just didn't fit. And they, it gets introduced in the movie, but then they don't do anything with it in the next movie. Like she's just a fly on the wall. And
Well, she was lambasted as an actress.
I know
that.
that made me sick.
It was sad that they attacked her so bad for it to the point where she couldn't even do the third movie.
She did the third movie.
Well, she was in it, but in a hugely smaller role.
I would have liked to seen her character, like her and Finn, be a thing.
Absolutely. They would have
And
made a cute couple 100% of the way.
and the whole Cato bite scene, I hated that scene. I thought it was so worthless to the whole movie.
The what?
Oh, the scene in The Last Jedi where they go to the gambling planet so that they can find the expert code cracker and do their thing. And I'm just like, that whole thing was just so pointless.
Although,
And
I will admit,
they literally
it seemed
put it,
like a very roundabout way to introduce the idea that there were hidden Force users still out there.
well, what they did was they introduced Cato Bite in that movie almost, and it felt forced when I saw it. I was like, why did they bring this shit up? Especially when they didn't actually do anything in the planet, really. It was just like a backdrop. Well, they dropped a book called Cato Bite later. That was like a Star Wars heist book. And I think, honestly, they shoehorned that in the movie to sell that book. And I'm just like, come on, come on. And if you watch, speaking of books, if you read any of the trilogy that was re-released,
Actually kind of brings me to another point that I was going to make. What with Rose and the characters specifically, they underutilized a lot of excellent characters.
you think?
Yeah, like bringing back Lando Calrissian.
Yeah.
When they brought him back, he was just like, hey, look at me. I'm a cameo. Pew, pew, pew. Okay, bye.
Yeah. I know why they did it. They were probably trying to make sure that the story was more about the new characters and not the old. I mean, it's the same thing happened in The Office. Steve Carell comes back for the very last episode of The Office, and everybody's all excited to see him because everybody loves Michael Scott. but he's only got like 2 lines in the whole finale. And it was meant to be that way because he didn't want the show to be about him. It was about the characters there. And that's what they wanted to do with these characters. They didn't want it to be about the old characters. It was supposed to be passing the torch on to a new generation.
Yeah.
But they could have had him be, it's Lando freaking Calrissian. Give him a little bit more of an important job. Welcome back, listeners. So, in full disclosure here, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty right about our 50-minute mark or so on this episode. And Mike and I are here to finish it out.
A week later.
That's okay, because time just does not pass in a galaxy far, far away like it does everywhere else, right,
Oh,
Mike?
it absolutely does.
Does it?
Well, yeah, people age.
When you can span a galaxy in literally 4 days.
What about it?
Time just... space travel just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Does?
Does it?
It does.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
Have you
I guess
not
if
seen
you're
Interstellar?
I think if you're folding space over into hyperspace and then traveling faster. Well, actually, the ships didn't actually. Here's a fun fact about Star Wars, Mike. The ships didn't actually travel faster than light. They make a lot of weird references and all that, but what the ships actually do is they enter a dimension called hyperspace, where they travel at a normal speed, but they're traveling vast distances in hyperspace because of science fiction reasons. In the modern canon, of course, where you see them, let's do this hyperspace jump through from planet to planet blind without doing calculations. Well, that is how you die in the Star Wars universe, ladies and gentlemen, because while you may be traveling through hyperspace, things that still affect hyperspace are gravity. So if there's a really big star or a planet or a black hole or something like that, that is a big gravitational shadow, it would theoretically be like hitting a brick wall at 100-mile-an-hour.
On that same note, that is also one of the main plot points of the Doom movie, when they use the Ark, I think is what they called it, if I remember correctly, to get people from Earth to Mars, where all of this takes place. They too go through hell, which is where all the demons come from.
Yeah. That's they opened a portal to hell, and that's what happened.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
and that's where
bordering
Doom
on
Guy
a
comes
trope.
up. They say that talented writers are creative, but great writers steal.
Yeah, you're right.
So just
granted,
fun
as long
fact.
as nobody says, hey, this is a totally original idea, then they're absolutely going to be okay with it, because who puts a trademark on an idea other than Donald Trump?
Do you remember back in episode 2 where you had that totally original idea? You got any more?
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's hear it.
Why?
Just tried to go to you and have to censor you again.
I mean, if you want me to say, then I fucking will.
Michael, my ears. Oh, they're bleeding right now, ladies and gentlemen. Out from under my headset, they are just gushing with blood.
Well, next time, don't goad me into saying, and you'll be fine.
Oh, man. Brutal. All right, so back to the topic at hand. So we've touched on throughout here the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, but that's just, Star Wars doesn't end there. We've talked a lot about the extended universe and the books and all that, but Star Wars has not ended there, because Disney is kind of a whore when it comes to putting out content.
Completely. And like the actual universe, they're ever expanding, so they're just adding a bunch of bullshit to the Star Wars franchise and calling it a day.
Well, and some of it, I think, I really feel like they took a toilet full of poo, threw it at the wall, and they wanted to see which turd stuck. And ladies and gentlemen, my absolute favorite turd, and I know that 89% or more of the internet would agree, The Mandalorian was the turd that stuck.
And you know what? I watched the first season of it, specifically just the first season. I just never picked it up after that. And I really enjoyed it. Although, I will admit, that was my first time ever seeing Pedro Pascal, and I did not think he was a very pretty man at that time. Because when he took the helmet off, he was kind of dusty and gross, so I didn't really see just how beautiful he actually is.
That was the kind of helmet pull reveal I wanted to see on Adam Driver that we talked about earlier. I wanted to see that dusty, gross, scarred up, I'm wearing a mask because I'm ashamed of my face look. And, but I disagree. I think Pedro Pascal is a handsome man too.
Well, now, yes,
And
especially
and
his bit with Nicolas Cage where he's in the car smiling
ah,
at him, the meme.
that's my favorite
That
meme. I
is a
love that meme.
wonderful meme, I will admit, and Pedro Pascal is fucking adorable.
He is. And when I saw his little, I think he had that little facial mustache thingy going on under his Mandalorian mask
What
even.
other kind of mustache is there?
I know, it's just it threw me off a bit, but I tell you what, The Mandalorian, you should go pick up the next season and The Book of Boba Fett and the season after that because it finished strong and hard.
Wait, it's
Hard enough.
actually done?
Oh, yes, and
Dun, dun, dun.
the movie just had its first trailer drop, actually, if you
Oh,
do
shit.
about last week. They're putting out a The Mandalorian and Grogu
Huh.
movie, and it looks like it's gonna have every bit of action. I mean, you get to see a Hutt fighting in a battle arena.
Which
That's not something
sounds
I
it
did not have
sounds
that on
like
my bingo card.
watching a fist fight between 2 grossly obese people at a McDonald's.
Oh, this thing, Hutts can be fast. They're not all slow slobs. He's like a giant worm, and he's got a humongous, like, mace or a flail or something, and he's swinging that shit around like it's nothing,
I'm glad you said
and
mace or flail or something after that, by golly.
something very phallic he's wielding,
Yes, see, that's
and,
bad
uh,
enough.
and he's, yeah, anyway, he looks like a badass. So, The
I don't know,
Mandalorian,
Batu Waki Nabadudu Solo Ho 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 just will never be badass to me.
that's fair. So, you wanna hear my hot take, though, on Disney and their release? Because the internet will probably roast me.
Get at it.
Andor.
What
Did
about
you
it?
watch Rogue One?
I did, I don't remember an awful lot about it beyond The Blind Samurai.
So, I remember everything about it because I just am that guy. I've watched it a few times, and I watched most of Andor all the way up to, like, the last few episodes, and I just ladies and gentlemen, I just don't see it, and maybe I'm uncultured, maybe I'm a swine, but Rogue One was a really good war story, but it ended horrible, and it was too crammed. Like, they crammed way too much into one movie. All the cast didn't seem to work together, and your Blind Samurai guy and his buddy were the best things about that movie.
That's the only reason I even remember it, but as
And
you had said,
and Ca
said the nun to the Randy Stallion, it is possible to put too much in.
Cassian Andor was just like this blank, emotionless character because all reasons and war and and I grew up fighting and killing and, "Oh, I'm this tortured soul." But, like, he's not relatable, he's not personable, and I just don't like him, and I don't know why, and to spin off an entire series after him where he starts episode 1 being that same blank, like, emotionless slate and then accidentally getting mad and killing somebody. I'm just like, I just don't get it.
You know
It
what?
wasn't this work of beauty and art that the internet made it out to be.
You know, The Mandalorian did it so much better with the haggard war veteran who gets angry on a flip of a nickel or a galactic credit, whichever.
Well, I
They
liked
got
the
Bill
I have
Burr in The
spoken guy.
Mandalorian.
Oh, Bill Burr, yeah,
That dude gets angry for no reason, and he makes it hilarious.
his character actually is pretty damn deep in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a haggard war veteran who gets angry on the flip of a nickel or galactic credit, whichever.
He was actually an Imperial,
Uh-huh.
and he had to kill a lot of innocent people, and he didn't agree with it. And it's funny because if you did you watch the scene where him and Mando team up? No, because you didn't finish season 1.
Yeah, I did.
But
I got through
they
season 1 and then just didn't continue from there.
oh, okay. Well, you didn't finish past season 2, I should say,
No, I did not.
because him and Bill Burr team up again later, and they go into an Imperial, like, weapons depot factory thing, and they encounter a Imperial captain. He's recognized by Bill Burr's character.
Oh.
And he starts going on about how good a time it was to kill all these people on that planet that they were on. And this is the memory that literally haunts Bill Burr's character. And he's sitting there listening to this guy just talk about it like it was Tuesday and it was a good time, to the point where he finally snaps and shoots him
Hmm.
right in the head in the middle of the mess hall. and like just gives away the game because he couldn't control himself. And like you could just see the depth of trauma built up in this guy. And that to me is what was missing in Andor. I never saw this building of trauma and I just saw this incoherent story thrown together and them trying desperately to slap together reasons for a rebellion to be happening.
Yeah, but you see the parallel here between the two characters.
Well, no, because Andor wasn't a soldier. He was literally a guy working on a mining planet.
Thought you just said he'd been raised in war.
He says that in Rogue One, but then you don't really see it much. Like you see him doing all these missions for the rebellion under Cloak and Dagger, but like not war ravaged, trauma built.
Cloak and Dagger is a Marvel property. We'll get to that later.
Okay. Well, it's actually just a term. I'm sure they haven't copyrighted the term, but please don't sue me because you're also owned by Disney and we're talking about your IP here.
Check it out. Marvel Star Wars crossover.
So I didn't really watch The Acolyte, I'll admit, but what I did see of it was actually kind of cool. It had, it was telling a story in the Old Republic, which it never gets touched on enough. There's a really good MMO out there, Star Wars The Old Republic, that really touches on lots of stories from like ancient Star Wars times.
I wouldn't say really good. I would say mediocre.
I would say really good. The stories that are in that game are actually really good. I won't say that the game is really good.
You watch yourself or I'll change my opinion from mediocre to bad.
Well, you can change your opinion all you want, and you are entitled to be wrong, Michael. That's okay.
You are working your way towards going to your bed without supper, young man.
Oh, boy. But, the Book of Boba Fett comes out, and I tell you, when they say that it was The Mandalorian season 2.5, they're not wrong.
Boba Fett's an actual Mandalorian.
Well, yes, but after a little bit, when Mando actually comes into the story, he takes over. He commands the story at that point.
Sure.
And Boba Fett is still like just freaking badass. Of
course,
cool story. But like, I think they could have took it a little bit farther than Boba Fett's struggle to reclaim dictatorship and power in this small Mos Eisley city. Like that's literally the whole story is about him trying to fairly take over the power that was vacated by Jabba the Hutt. And I kind of expected it to be a little bit deeper of a story than that, but Boba Fett looks like a really bad guy in Empire Strikes Back. Like a really bad guy. Like he's a prick.
Well, I mean, it's stated pretty damn clearly that he's a bounty hunter, and bounty hunters are going to do what they want to do to make money.
That's true. But then when he gets, thrown in the Sarlacc pit and has to fight his way out and knocking on death's door.
A gigantic, awesome part of Boba Fett's story.
Oh, it was. And they show all of it in the Book of Boba Fett, him
including his lightsaber battle with Darth Vader, which he wins.
No, they don't show that. I think that was in a comic book. I don't think that's canon anymore.
Well, make it canon. You assholes.
But anyway, he fights his way out of that Sarlacc pit, and he comes out a changed man after living with the Sand People for a while.
Yeah.
Or Tusken Raiders. I'm sorry. I want to be politically correct here. But, okay, so there's Book of Boba Fett. It's actually a pretty good show. Andor, I think, sucked. I mean, you got your animated stuff. If you like the Clone Wars, if the war stories and how the war raged on through the galaxy is your thing, boy, let me tell you, you got 9 seasons of just gold out there, as long as you can get past the kiddie animation.
The Clone Wars, I should point out, not Clone Wars.
Not Clone Wars, no.
It was written by Genndy Tartakovsky, and it was, 5-minute episodes.
There were actually 2 Clone Wars shows. There was an anime it was an anime movie, and then there was the actual release movie that introduced Ahsoka Tano. And then there was the Disney series that came out with 30-minute episodes for 9 seasons. And I tell you, get to the parts with Darth Maul, because if you want to see Darth Maul as a psychotic trash spider, oh man.
Psychotic trash spider should be the word of the day on an episode of Pee-wee's Playhouse.
I think it would be. It really would, because he literally is cut off at the waist from his fight with Qui-Gon Jinn,
You mean
tortured.
Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Oh, yeah.
I
Well,
corrected you on Star Wars. Be
you did.
ashamed.
He started the fight with Qui-Gon Jinn and ended the fight with Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan
And
ended the fight. I did
when
it
his
again. I'm on a roll.
remains when his remains were found at the bottom of that pit, he was still alive, and Palpatine had him tortured for his failure until the point where he was just abandoned and left to die. And then his brother found him and constructed these wicked cool legs out of trash, and he became like a spider god. And then he built himself normal legs and became a criminal crime lord and tried to take over the galaxy again as the Crimson Dawn or something like that.
That was like the plot of Solo, wasn't it?
It was, but it was also heavily touched on in, I believe, Rebels,
No.
or maybe Clone Wars. I don't know. It's touched on in a few
Couldn't
different
be
places.
sure, but I mean,
There's
reveal him at the end of Solo, and it's just
They
like,
do.
bro, you
He
bring in
was
the
the
coolest character in the canon so far and do nothing with him? Come on.
I admit that I agree with you that he should have had at least a little bit more. But here's the point I'm getting at with all this, ladies and gentlemen, because I could talk for another hour and a half about all the different shows out there. You can be an uber Star Wars nerd and still not have watched half of this shit that's out there.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I don't know another franchise that can literally have so much content, so much quality, well-made content. And even if you don't like the story or the direction they take it, you can't argue that it's well-made content.
The Elder Scrolls.
Well, no, there's way more Star Wars content out there than there
Well,
are
there's
Elder
more of
Scrolls
it,
content.
yes, but it's
Yes.
existed for about 30 years longer.
So you've got a whole list of games out there, folks. You could go play KOTOR, SOTOR, KOTOR 2, any of the classic flying games, Rogue Squadron, that had like 5 sequels. If you want to get out an old DOS box, you can play X-Wing and TIE Fighter and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and TIE Advance. It just goes on and on
Or
and
get
on.
the Xbox Kinect and you can dance as Han Solo in one of the most cringy little dance studio games ever.
On the GameCube, when you
Xbox.
fired up Rogue Squadron 4, I think, or
Yeah.
I think it was 4. But if you fire it up on the GameCube, the intro is the disco version of the Star Wars song, and all the main characters are dancing under a disco ball that's shaped like the Death Star. And it has got to be the least serious, most ridiculous intro I have ever freaking heard.
Well, you haven't played Conker's Bad Fur Day, so.
No, I have not. But hey, that segues to something nice.
What's that?
Actually, I'll talk about that later. So, ladies and
So
gentlemen,
not a segue.
I want to know how you feel about Star Wars. What would you do to fix the trilogies? Email us, arguingwithdragons@gmail.com.
It's a
Send us your
trilogy of
thoughts.
trilogies, by the way. There's 3 trilogies.
Oh yeah, you can tell us how you want to fix any of the trilogies. If you could delete any Star Wars content from the universe, what would you delete? Or you could just email me in and be like, you guys have trash opinions about Star Wars and should shut up. I don't care. Just email me to make sure I know that you're listening to us, listeners. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I would fix the trilogy in one way each.
Well, how's that? Let's hear it.
In the prequels, Jar Jar Binks get thrown out of an airlock into a black hole. Bye. Just later. Except the Darth Jar Jar thing that was floating around the internet for a while. I don't hate that. I don't hate it.
I hate it. I truly do. Jar Jar Binks was a ridiculous comedy relief character.
Absolutely,
that was
yes.
basically a puppet. And for anybody to be like, he was a Sith Lord. No, if you read the Aftermath trilogy, they have a very clear intro to a chapter where they mention Jar Jar Binks is now a social outcast and homeless living on Naboo, where little kids throw shit at him because they know he's like a street clown. And if the people knew what he was really responsible for, because he is blamed for the rise of the Empire, because he was the casting vote to elevate Palpatine to chancellorship, then that's what happened to Jar Jar. He was no Sith Lord, ladies and gentlemen.
Sure, that's canon, but I'm just saying, the idea that's there, if it were anywhere near as realized as the internet made it, it could have made for some pretty compelling story.
Well, the internet likes
Just
to make...
saying.
The internet loves to exaggerate stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Now, original trilogy, one fix would be to do more with IG-88.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that was a missed opportunity to have a cyborg killer.
Now, granted, the rest of the bounty hunters, besides Boba Fett himself, whatever.
They don't make droids look very lethal or dangerous.
No, they
in
don't.
the
That's
original
why I think
trilogy.
IG-88 would be an excellent character to portray
You
as
want to know
just
a
the
fun fact
badass.
about IG-88?
What's that?
There were 4 of them,
Really?
and they were a hive mind, and they had one ultimate goal, which was to destroy organic life in the galaxy. And they had actually, according to probably non-canon legends, I don't know, they infiltrated Death Star 2 inside the computer systems of Death Star 2 and were just waiting to go live because they were going to turn Death Star 2 against organic people, killing all the Empire and killing all the rebellion and everybody with it. But unfortunately, IG-88's entire consciousness was inside Death Star 2 when it blew up.
Oof.
So, whoopsies.
Or planning on his part, or its
Yeah.
part, whichever.
He, she, it, I don't care.
Well, either way. Still
So
a badass regardless.
he definitely was. And folks, if you loved our D&D episode, I think we may have touched on it briefly, but Star Wars has some really great roleplay content out there too. If you're ever interested in learning, look up something called Star Wars Saga Edition, or look up Star Wars Edge of the Empire. There's 2 very different, very unique gaming systems out there where you can literally live in the Star Wars galaxy. And it is, oh man, I wish I had more nerd friends that had more time, because I would play that at least once a week, every week for the rest of my life, because I just have so much fun telling stories in the Star Wars galaxy. So much fun. And there's also, I'm going to plug them, even though I'm not even sure if they still podcast, but Steven and Sam, they run something called the Dark Times podcast. And it was probably one of my biggest inspirations for even agreeing to sit down in front of a microphone and talk to you people.
All 3 of them.
Yeah, all 3 of you out there. They ran a really cool podcast, and they ran for a few seasons talking nothing more than about a dead tabletop RPG game. And they got popular enough talking about a, decade plus dead tabletop RPG game that they actually interviewed the creator of that game. And it was awesome.
Interesting.
He was one of the co-creators of D&D 4E, I think, and had done a lot of work for Wizards of the Coast, freelance work. And they got to interview him. And, if Sam and Steve, if you ever listen to this podcast, you guys are awesome. Keep it up. I think they talk about Starfinder now, and I kind of stopped listening after that because I'm not really interested in learning yet another gaming system.
Yeah.
But
I feel
more power
that.
to them. They're freaking awesome guys.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I
for
think
the sequel trilogy, what I would change?
Yeah, what would you change, Mike?
Instead of Finn taking off in the speeder to try to destroy the thing, yada yada, and Rose intercepting him, which, ruined the entire trilogy for a lot of people, I would say Rose instead just barreled past him so she'd sacrifice herself instead of saving him, thus completing the mission and at the same time proving that she was a hero. Would have been a lot more of a plot hook.
I think they should have just let Finn die at that point.
I don't know. I mean, the actor that portrays him, despite me not remembering his name for the life of me, he's a pretty good actor.
No, I
He was
absolutely
one of
love
the
him.
glowing examples in that trilogy of
So
good.
before you judge me too hard, I love his character and I love the actor, and I would absolutely not want to see Finn die. However, that was a total noble sacrifice moment that he tried to make
Yes, it was.
to stop and save his friends. And they took that away from him. For what? Rose didn't die. He didn't die. Nobody sacrificed anything. And then Luke Skywalker came down as a ghost and saved the day. And he sacrifices himself instead. That yet again, taking the story away from the newbies on the scene and giving it back to the Skywalker family at every turn.
Now, you saw what Rose did, and he was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I love Luke Skywalker and all that. Don't get me wrong. But if you want to pass the torch, Disney, you should have let one of those characters do that and make that sacrifice instead of it just being, oh,
Luke's gonna come down and save them all, and he's not really in any danger because he's not really there.
That's just the reemergence of Superman in the Justice League movie. It's like they were struggling to beat the fly whatevers that were sent down by Darkseid and Steppenwolf. And then Superman shows up and it's over in seconds.
Yeah,
Deus Ex Machina.
I like that show though. I don't
I
think it's way too much hate.
I will admit that the visual effects were very impressive. Henry Cavill is always a nice block of man meat to look at. Same with Jason Momoa, but at the same time,
Ben Affleck was a good Batman.
yes,
There, I
he
said it,
was.
internet.
Yes, he was. And I am tired of saying he was not.
Okay, so let's not get too far off topic because we
Yeah,
need to
you're
round
right.
this out, folks. So, what are we talking about next episode, Mike?
I don't know. What should we talk about?
Well, actually, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to give you any delusions. We've actually already recorded our next episode, and we're going to be bringing it to you here real soon. So next week, look forward to hearing Mike and Tyson talk about the Nintendo 64.
Will we perhaps talk a little bit about the Star Wars Shadows of the Empire Nintendo 64 game?
I think we do actually a little bit.
Ooh.
It is a fantastic system, ladies and gentlemen, but it is definitely not without its flaws. So we're going to dissect it and let you know exactly what went wrong and tell you why we love it anyway, because that's kind of what we do here in Arguing with Dragons.
That's right. That is what we do. We rip shit apart and then we baby it back to health.
We do. That's because that's what nerds do.
Yes,
We
it is.
criticize and bitch about everything we love, but it doesn't change the fact that we love it.
Usually it's because of lag.
The ultimate nemesis of nerds everywhere. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Remember, send us your feedback, arguingwithdragons@gmail.com. I'm dying to see an email come into that account, folks, so don't disappoint me.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, you have yourself a great evening.
Oh, I might.
Take care.